Well, good evening, everybody. And just to start with, a huge thank you for all of you joining us tonight because it's given up your valuable time. What we'd like to do tonight is just give you an update on how the excellent progress for the new Hillingdon Hospital is continuing. We're roughly sort of got an hour. What we'd like to do is just go through a short presentation and then there'll be a chance for questions and answers afterwards. Questions, this is the second of our events so far. Questions either through raising your hands, or there is, for those who are more IT literate than me, the chat box. And I will endeavour with Neil to also be monitoring that tonight. In terms of who's presenting, my name's Jason, Jason Sees, and I'm what's called the Senior Responsible Officer for the redevelopment, which is sort of a posh way of saying the person who's leading it. Joining me tonight is Vanessa Sloan, one of our clinical leads for the redevelopment, and then the chap who's looking very smart with a tie on is Tahir Ahmed, who is our estates lead for the redevelopment. So I'll be presenting, other than me handing over to Tahir, then Vanessa, then Neil, and then we'll have questions and answers at the end. What we'd like to do this evening, which is sort of up on the slide now, just a brief recap of where we are in the process, what we've been working on, how we've improved the design, how a better design will improve care for our patients, how people can get involved in the ongoing process, and then, as stated earlier, we'll then be doing the questions and answers. So if we move on, so this is the slide I always get at the beginning. It's quite a dry slide, but I'll try and make it as lively as possible. This is just a brief overview of the process for building a new hospital. So if I work through from the left-hand side and then go across to the right, just on that far left-hand side, it refers to something called the Health Infrastructure Plan. And that was a government announcement in late 2019, pretty much outlining that we're at a national level, an ambitious programme to build 40 new hospitals. We were, for the Hillingdon hospitals, on the list for a new Hillingdon hospital. Following on from that, working with all our partners, both at a sort of a local level, so there's Hillingdon Health and Care Partners, where we work with our local GPs, our local authority, our local community mental health trust, Health Watch, the voluntary sector. We all work together on updating our clinical services strategy. And that very much was us outlining as not just wanting to build a new hospital, but actually how we're all going to work together in improving care to our local population, which will culminate in the housing of all our new services as they improve in that new hospital. So that happened in 2020. And then the right-hand side, as we move across, the key piece on building a new hospital is there is a three-stage business case process. And that's referred to as a strategic outline case, an outline business case, and then a full business case. At a sort of very summary level, the strategic outline case sort of details what we want to do. The outline business case details how we're going to do it. And then the full business case is who we're going to do it with. So no different to having an extension on your house, how you're working with the builder, and so really going through that sort of final design in the full business case. The team, I cannot stress enough, have made such excellent progress on this. If you think about all the other events that our staff have been dealing with over the last 2 years with COVID, the strategic outline case was very well received and really sort of seen as one of the best cases put forward for a redevelopment. And the strategic outline case was approved by our regulators, so NHS England and NHS Improvement and the Department of Health and Social Care. And that being approved has allowed us to progress to that second stage, which is the outline business case. Again, over the last year, fantastic progress, and we are looking to, by the spring, to have completed our outline business case so that in the summer we can submit that again to our colleagues at the centre for approval. And then further to that outline business case, we will then look to work with a sort of a builder about how we finalise our design, which then leads into the main construction. If we could just move on then, Neil. So what we've been working on, so the key piece here, the strategic outline case, and then as you move through into that outline business case, is really refining the designs and getting to a much more sort of detailed, granular level. So you start with something that's called 1 to 500 plans, which in effect is very sort of big picture and looking at all the clinical adjacencies and how the hospital would work at a broad level. We've completed that planning, and what we're now working on and just in the process now of finalising is our 1 to 200 design, which is a sort of at a much sort of more detailed level of how the hospital will look. And then what will happen as you then move further into the process, there is something called the 1 to 50 designs, which really as sort of a room level, you can see all the detail. In putting that design together, we're very much of an approach that our clinicians are leading that process, supported by a sort of suite of consultants with experts in sort of their relative fields to refine that design and sort of make sure that from all aspects, we're really designing a 21st century hospital. A key part of that has been listening as well. So although we've got all these expert advisors, although our clinicians are driving the process, absolutely ensuring as well with that we're doing public engagement and we're listening to people about, is this really what people want? So that has been a sort of iterative process, and it's been really fruitful in terms of some of the discussions we're having. I mentioned earlier about the new hospitals programme. As part of that programme, there are 8 schemes who are seen as the front runners for the new sort of tranche of hospitals that are going to be built, who are referred to as the Pathfinders. And us working with 7 other hospital schemes are very much working as a collaboration about how we put those designs together to ensure, absolutely, we might have thought something here, but also checking in with the 7 other schemes to see how that sort of relates to what they're doing, and equally in terms of best practice, whether there's anything we can learn from them. So there's a huge amount of work going on at the moment. If we move on, I will hand over to Tahir now.
Thank you, Jason, and good evening to everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual building itself and the process that we've undertaken in getting to where we are today. So just in terms of orientation, I've put a picture of the site for Hillingdon Hospital. It's shown in the yellow dotted line. That's the entire site at the moment. The bit that you see in grey to the west side is where we are proposing to put our new hospital, which will be developed in parallel with keeping the existing hospital operational. We have, along with our partners, absolutely started the work. We're undergoing an extensive decanting enabling programme, which is now looking to move those services to temporary accommodation. You will have noticed, if you know Hillingdon Hospital and have been there recently, we've put up some rather modern modular units to start accommodating some of the space that is relocating from the west to the east side of the hospital as well. And our plan is to have a vacant site ready for construction as soon as possible. If I could have the next slide, please. Here it gives you a bit more of an illustration of what that looks like in its future state. Point number 1, if you can see it, is where the new hospital sits, and to the north of that is a new multi-storey car park, or a mobility hub as we've referred to it. What is also really obvious when you compare the 2 slides terms of what we have and what we have now, is the amount of green and open space that is going to be surrounding the site as well. Thank you, Neil. You can see that we've got vast open space towards the centre of the site, around the buildings themselves. And point number 4, as you can see, is also an improved wetland area as well. So good for not just the hospital users, but the local community as well. Thank you. If I could have the next slide, please. That's just an image looking back from what that open space would be in the centre of the site. This is work in progress. It's architectural impressions at the moment, but we will be providing more detailed visualizations to help conceptualize our design as well. So if I could just move forward, please, Neil. Thank you. So what have we been doing? Well, as Jason says, it's been a very busy summer. We've been diligently working behind the scenes in collaboration with all our partners. We have indeed been responding to the feedback from patients and the public, and of course forums like this as well, taking that feedback and embedding it within our hospital design considerations. We've ensuring that the hospital does absolutely respond to that clinical and operational requirements, and that we have a hospital that is fully functional on day one. In parallel with this, we've been working extensively with our local authority. They clearly have a huge interest in a hospital in Hillingdon, and of course we've been working with them to ensure all their queries are answered appropriately. Behind the scenes again is the new hospital programme. Jason mentioned that. They've been working extensively, not just with us, but the whole 8 Pathfinders referenced earlier. But of course, there are new emerging standards of how hospitals should look. Let's not repeat the mistakes made previously, many years ago. So again, we're taking good learning, good guidance and structure from the new hospital programme to ensure that we have a fit for purpose modern hospital. And of course, behind that is obviously underpinned with a financial envelope. So working very closely with our finance colleagues across the system to ensure that this is an affordable, sustainable hospital going forward. Thank you. If I could have the next slide, please. So I've put in some general visualizations just to give you some idea of what the hospital could look like. And I'll do stress these are draft at the moment. This shows you Royal Lane at the moment. What this is actually giving you is a number of impressions. One is how the hospital sets back from its current street curb elevation, but also how we're using sympathetic materials to ensure that the hospital nestles very nicely within the streetscape as well. We're also looking at, and it's important to know that one of the new emerging standards of building hospitals is ensuring that they're built using modern methods of construction. And now what that is ensuring that the hospital, the amount of construction time on site is absolutely reduced. What we're looking to do is build as much of this hospital off-site in a controlled environment in a factory, and simply bringing it to site and bolting it on. So notwithstanding reducing the amount of time on site, it actually reduces the amount of disruption that we would cause, and it just allows for a very seamless, quick and efficient hospital to be built to a very high standard, given that control environment in which that's constructed. It also, by its shape, you can note that it's rather standardized. And again, we do that very deliberately to ensure that not only ease with construction, but also the hospital can be adaptable and flexible for the future, commonly referred to as a flexible chassis for the hospital as well. If I could just move forward, please. This is just again a view along Royal Lane. We've opened up the building. We've not just got great big mass building running along Royal Lane. There's a separation of the multi-storey car park on the left with a very helpful and attractive space that provides good permeability through the hospital to the centre green space that I showed earlier as well. The new hospital is to the right, shown in that grey colour. Thank you. If I can move on. Again, that's just another view. I stress this is work in progress, and we'll continue to work around the enhancements to make the area even more attractive. And again, please. Thank you. Just before I hand over to Vanessa, I also wanted to mention that we are working to another standard, which is the government's net zero carbon requirements. So as part of our agenda, we will be following the sustainability approach to ensuring this hospital is indeed one of the first net zero carbon hospitals and a fully sustainable hospital for the future. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Vanessa.
Thanks to hear. So as Jason said, I'm Vanessa Sloan and I'm the nursing lead for the redevelopment programme. So we just wanted to talk to you a bit about what we were putting in to make this facility better for patients and staff and families as well. This is based on clinical need, more services joined up, so there's a real smoother path for patients and families, but also a better working environment for our staff. So our urgent and emergency care, so that's our urgent care centre and emergency department, are on a single floor. They've got integrated diagnostics, so that's your x-ray scans, all of those things together. So individuals coming in, it will be easy to access and you won't have to travel far to get from facility to facility. We've got a midwife-led unit, which is co-located with our maternity services. A larger critical care unit, we've found, of course, over the last couple of years that we have needed that alongside a new high dependency unit. Our outpatients, as it says, is designed to improve the patient experience. So we've got better rest facilities supporting that, better integrated care. We talk about digitally enabled care, but we're also conscious that not everybody has access to digital facilities or is digital savvy, and so we will make sure that everything is accessible for those who may not wish to use a digital programme. We've got large treatment rooms for consultations. We've got a lot more day case procedures, so we plan to be using our day case facilities much more in order to be able to reduce some of our inpatient length of stays. And radiologic diagnostics available on the day so that it is a true one-stop shop. You come into outpatients, you have your investigations, and then you can go home and not need to come back again for more investigations. Thanks, Neil. Next slide, please. So we've got our elective services will be increasing from 40 to 48 hours a week, and that will make a real difference for our patients in terms of the ability to access those services more promptly, but also for all of our teams enabling a better layout through the week of the services we're offering. The current plans show more floor space. That's not all rammed with clinical processes. We have got much better facilities for staff restrooms, for patient restrooms, for our chaplaincy and our Muslim prayer rooms. We've really looked at everything that could be needed, and we've learned from everything that's happened over the last couple of years. You'll see that there's a small increase in bed numbers. It doesn't include beds at Mount Vernon, but we're going to be utilising those beds in a much better way. So as I say, really looking at what can be done as outpatient procedures, what can be done through our ambulatory emergency care, and how can we use our day services better. We've got more single rooms. So again, that's learning over the last couple of years, but we haven't gone to complete single rooms because we recognise that some people want to be together with others, and particularly in some of our areas such as children's areas, they may wish to be together with their appropriate age group alongside their parents, of course. So we've got a full isolation suite per 8 beds. Each ward has got about 28 to 32 beds. And our critical care unit, as it says, is split into 2 clusters of 10. That allows us to use the space more flexibly, and we've got a bay and also the single rooms. So you'll see our staff have got really excited in seeing the drawings which have been coming through. It's an ability for us to recruit staff as well. It's a really attractive option. So we've got lots of great facilities going through, and we look forward to taking you with us on that journey. I'm going to hand over to Neil now. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry. Thanks for that. I just thought I'd chat through some of the things that how you can get involved now. I appreciate a lot of this is kind of online, but so just to start off with, so these events that we're doing online were originally booked in to be face-to-face. So we will be doing events face-to-face more now. So covering, we're going to do so Harmondsworth St Mary's Church, the Civic Centre and Campus. We'll also do one in Hayes, not limited to those are just the ones that we have and have definitely got plans for so far, but we'll be doing more. But also from the public exhibition, we found that we didn't hear from absolutely all groups across the borough. So, in particular people, for example, people with learning disabilities, people who aren't as kind of digitally able, and people with other disabilities and carers. So there's lots of groups that are also targeting, not just just through these events. And also we want to kind of carry on the conversation again. But having said that, so if you want to get involved and find out about our plans, there's obviously our website. Please do sign up for our newsletter. You can also ask us a question directly. You can fill in our we've got quite a few surveys actually, but the radiology one is one that's running at the moment. It's got lots of people, lots of really good feedback, and then there's some pictures in here as well, which show hopefully if you've been to the hospital you might have seen at least some of them, but these are all up around the hospital on various screens as well, encouraging people to ask a question, get involved and see what's going on. So it's just a quick run through. I'm sure people have questions, but if I just move on to the next slide, hand over to Jason.
So, conscious that's quite a whistle-stop tour of a lot of information there. Hopefully, if some of you joined the first roadshow, it's more familiar, but conscious for people joining for the first time. So, if people are content, what we will do is, if you've got a question, is to raise your hand, and then hopefully I'll be able to sort of take people in order. And there you go. We've already got somebody in at number one. And then the other bit is in the chat box. We've also got some questions just on being more savvy with the technology tonight. If I just cover some of the questions that have come up in the chat box, which if I click on again, I think there was a question around who are the Pathfinders. So in terms of the 8, there are 3 in London. So there's Hillingdon, obviously in northwest London. In east London, there's Whipps Cross Hospital. And then sort of right at the bottom of southwest London, there is Epsom and St Helier. If you just go just above London into the sort of top of the home counties, you've got Princess Alexandra Hospital in Harlow, and then you've got Watford in Hertfordshire. And then I don't know if I do these correctly in geographical order, but as you move up the sort of the country, you've got, I'll get this probably wrong now, Leicester, Leeds and Manchester. But between us, that's the 8 of us. And working very closely together. So that was that question. There was then a question on Royal Lane. To hear you okay taking that? Just around I mean, it's referring to a loss of daylight, but you just want to provide assurance about how you're working with the town planners to make sure our design is absolutely meeting all the requirements.
Yes, absolutely, Jason. It's a very valid question, and one that we've taken into consideration from the very outset of our design. It's always difficult when you share visualizations because you don't really get a perspective of both size, mass and distance, for instance, as well. It's important to note that as part of our hospital design, we have absolutely worked with the local authority and concerns around neighbours along Royal Lane to step back the building, as I mentioned earlier, as far as possible into the centre of the site of the current hospital. We are also working with our experts to undertake a full daylight and sunlight assessment as well. And as the designs could become more settled, we'll have a much clearer picture on where some of those challenges may be, and of course we'll respond positively to to absolutely minimising any impact along Royal Lane and any other elevation of the hospital overlooks as well.
Thank you. There was then a question about the surgical facility next to A&E, especially for people who need urgent time critical treatment like cardiac arrest. I mean, Vanessa, I don't know if you want to add. I think the great thing around the sort of excellent clinical involvement we've got is people ensuring, so at that 1 to 500 level, that the departments are co-adjacent. So you have absolutely everybody checking through that. In terms of that emergency and urgent care, there's 2 other units that are critical in supporting the emergency and urgent care department, which are called like a medical assessment unit and a surgical assessment unit. And very much in terms of how Vanessa described the sort of urgent and emergency care floor, it is going to be quite a big floor because all those co-adjacencies are going to happen in the same place, as Vanessa said, with the diagnostics. So from a patient perspective, you're not having to go around the whole hospital. Everything is there on the same floor. All the staff are working together. And so from a patient perspective, we're really hoping it will be such a better experience for people.
I agree, Jason. I think the other thing I'd add is we've separated out some of the lifts. So actually to make moving between floors, so where patients are admitted to a ward, we've actually made it easier that we're not putting everybody in the same lift. So it's not visitors and beds and kit, that we've separated that out. So actually that does make it easier to move around between the floors as well as across the floors.
Thank you, Vanessa. There was also a question to hear about house prices in Royal Lane. I hope you can provide some assurance that taking the current Hillingdon estate and what will be proposed, hopefully it will be a significant asset to the local community. But would you like to just comment?
Yes, absolutely, Jason. I mean, we are building a really quite a significant building which will provide an enhancement to where we are today. So we hope with any sort of, the closest reference I can make is probably some regeneration programs you get. This is a regeneration program of sort. It's providing good landscaping. It's providing a modern, very attractive building on site, and we would hope that this will have a positive impact on the surrounding area, certainly around the hospital.
Thank you. And there was just a sort of follow-up question about the residence parking that runs parallel to the site.
Yeah, so you might have noticed the yellow line boundary that I showed at the start in terms of the images. Quite confusingly, it's referred to as a red line boundary, but we will be working within that boundary of the hospital. We will not be disturbing the current highways and the other public routes of parking as well. So I'm pretty reassured that that will continue as normal.
Thank you. If I come back to, I'm just conscious, I'll come back to some of the questions on the chat, but if I'm just in terms of people,
yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah,
having hands up, if we just work them through. So with technology, thankfully, people sort of get numbered now. So at number 1, is it Mohit?
Absolutely, Jason. First of all, I want to thank you guys. You have presented a really good presentation and gives a really good overview of what you're doing. So thanks for that. I do have 2-part question. So I'm going to start with the first one. I think as you guys have already seen, the Royal Lane that we are talking about, it's a very narrow road. And with this hospital build up and one of the best hospitals that would be upcoming in Hillingdon, there would be a big traffic problem that I can see. And I can see in Tahir's plan, there is a planned thing whereby there would be a residential development also done within that area. So are there any plans that you have on the traffic management situation around that area? Because from Plead Health, there is already a lot of traffic that comes in, and with Royal Lane on top of that, it would be a big traffic problem for residents like me who are quite near to the Hillingdon Hospital itself. The second question that I have is within the Useley West Drayton area, right? We have a big problem that we don't have a lot of GPs, and the only GP that we have near this area generally is towards the high street, and they are overbooked. Like, it's a known fact within the councillors and everything. is there a plan whereby which a small building can be built within the hospital for providing that GP services? Because that would be really helpful for the people around this area itself.
Thank you. Tahir, are you all right just taking part one and then I'll take part two? But do you want to just say about all the work on the traffic management that you're doing?
Of course, and thank you for the question there. I mean, I will say traffic or transport, if I got a penny for every time I was asked about it, I'll probably pay for the hospital myself. But so it just tells you how important it is to people, and today, of course, is evidence of that as well. I do want to say to you that I recognise everything that you said. So if I could just confirm a couple of things. First of all, the future hospital estate has been developed through a traffic modelling system that rationalises movement associated with this new hospital. So that's our remit. That's what we're trying to do, is sort this out. Now, it's important to know what our current position is. So the current highway on Peel Heath Road has a number of problems. One is this one-way traffic in and out of the hospital, or one-lane traffic in and out of the hospital. And two, it actually gets compounded by the fact that you've got buses on the east and the west side, that when they're stationary, it actually causes a backlog along Peel Heath Road. So with that in mind as well, and all the various traffic modelling that we've done, it's important to know, and this is where I will give the assurance, we've looked at those traffic junctions as well, and we'll be providing double lanes. So that actually is evidence has shown that that helps movement in and out of the hospital more efficiently. In addition to that, we have got sections along Peel Heath Road where the buses will stop. We are widening those both to the west and to the east as well, and that will allow traffic to pass in the event that buses are stationary on that area as well. Within our own multi-storey car park that we have, we're also providing barrier-free entry. So pay on exit is what we're looking at, number plate recognition systems, that sort of thing. And again, this has also shown that we can maximise the efficiency and reduce congestion at both entry and exit points as well. So there's a lot of initiatives gone into looking at the transport. We're taking it a stage further. This is a sustainability hub, so we're playing to the sustainability agenda as well. We're introducing car sharing for the trust staff that can minimise the number of vehicles. We're offering a car club for collection of staff and possibly others. We're also introducing and maintaining cycling hire schemes, high quality cycling parking and alternative modes of transport as well, through working with local partners in terms of EV charging for vehicles, and again electric vehicle clubs where people can use vehicles not depending on bringing additional vehicles to the area as well. So we hope that through all of these initiatives and the sustainability agenda, we'll actually not only improve the parking, but we'll see a reduction in number of vehicles coming in and out of the hospital. So I apologise for that rather sort of long-winded response, but it is important that we demonstrate that we take this very seriously. We are continuing to work with all the other junctions as well around the hospital to see where we can divert other forms of transport coming into the hospital, logistics, ambulances, so that not everything is coming in through the same route as well. And that's all part of the wider master plan. I hope that answers your question on transport.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just on your second point, which I think is a really insightful question around GPs, what we're ensuring, and I think there was something in the chat about bed numbers as well, that there is a key element of what we're absolutely trying to ensure is that although the new hospital will be the physical thing you see, what we're making sure is that all our services are working together, what was across sort of traditional divides of sort of the GPs, community and mental health, and sort of social services. So what we are doing is, as we're developing our hospital plan, that plan is also being jointly developed with all our partners. So hopefully from a patient perspective, that actually when you do come into the new hospital, you will receive fantastic care, but actually acknowledging that probably for much of the care that people need, probably there are more appropriate settings. And so there is a key piece for us around making sure, as we are developing our plans, how our GPs who are working in partnership develop their services. And absolutely, where you refer to some of their estate, supporting them, taking forward their plans to build new GP facilities and hubs in the borough, but then also working with sort of our local authority colleagues as well, just around social services to make sure it's all joined up. But very much around the specific question about A&E, we are working with all partners about how you have a sort of multi-agency approach, be it with mental and community health and the GPs in that front end as patients come in. So thank you for that question.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Because I'll give you the background, right? As a resident of Useley itself, there is a Useley family practice that we have here. They are so overbooked that the whole Useley council itself, they are like the whole Useley area itself is having a hard time finding a place, right? Literally everyone wants to build it. They are having a hard time finding a place to like give to the GP so that they can at least start something over there. So based upon the land that you have with the Hillingdon, with the Hillingdon hospital itself, that's why I was thinking like a small part would actually help them if that can be like shared with the council or something.
Absolutely. So what we've done as a trust this year is sort of update our estate strategy. And we've done that. There's something now called integrated care systems. So the whole of Northwest London is now, there's sort of an integrated care system. And we've worked in agreeing our estate strategy at a Northwest London level. And what we're now doing is working with all our local partners, including the GPs, in what's called a place level, so Hillingdon, about how we can support them in taking forward some of their estates planning.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
the answer.
Sue, you've gone straight into number one now. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello, thank you. You've actually, I've got sort of a couple of questions as well, please. The first one you've partially answered in my question was with regards to the multi-storey car park. Is this going to provide more parking than it does at present? Because the parking at present hasn't been sufficient over the last years. As a resident, we often get members of staff leaving their vehicles outside our houses for 12, 14 hours a day while they go off and do an extended shift. So I was hoping that there was more parking spaces available.
Okay, do you want to say both questions? Is that all right? And then we'll answer them in turn.
The second one, I mean, it is just in relation to building, because obviously over the last 2 to 3 years, we've had loads of building work going on at the rear of the hospital where the old Peter Pan and Wendy was. There's obviously a building that's gone up there now. Is there anything else planned to come behind that? I'm a little bit concerned because there's a parking area which I believe obviously belongs to the council, which has all been boarded up. Nobody uses it anymore. And I don't know whether the hospital are planning on redeveloping that area, which leads me into the third one. Will there be a model of the plan that we can actually physically come and see to make it easier to understand?
Thank you, Sue, for your 3 questions. So if I just take your last question and then I'll let Tahir answer your first 2. There's obviously in hospital design now, computers are super powerful, and there's lovely 3D models, and part of it will be, as we're finalising our plans, there'll almost be like a digital virtual environment that people can walk through to sort of experience the hospital. But I'm with you. I do love a model at the end of the day. Tahir will hear me say it again. I think just when we were referring to those 100 to 200 designs at the end of that, which will be sort of, gosh, where are we? Beginning of February, end of February. So if you leave your details, I'm hoping to have the model ready in March. I'll just pass on to to hear for the first two questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that question again. So I'll try and answer the first one in terms of car parking. I agree with you. Car parking is a concern, and we need to look at the numbers. That's what our modelling has done. Will it be the same numbers? Yes, proportionately it will be. What's the added advantage of what we're doing to improve it? Well, notwithstanding those measures that we put in place, but actually what it needs is a total management plan, and that's something we are absolutely looking into. Providing we have a really good management plan, control the timings, booking in online, all the usual things, we're very, very confident that through an appropriate management plan, good parking, so you're not circling around for hours and hours and hours. And there's good examples of this in the big multi-storey shopping centres that they have. You go and look for the green light and go and park there. So all of those type of systems, those intelligent parking systems, are being considered, and the evidence tells us that we won't have a problem. So
Can I just butt in there, because I'm talking more in terms of staff. So are the staff going to be parking in the multi-storey?
Yes, we will provide staff car parking, we'll provide patient transport parking, and so there'll be lots of areas of dedicated parking, as well as those people coming in through the use of electric vehicles as well. So we'll have an area for electric vehicle parking as well. So yes, we're absolutely looking at all the cohorts, all the potential users of that car park.
Right.
Sue, just on that point, if you didn't mind, when we meet up to go through the model, we'll also talk through about some of your concerns around what you're experiencing currently about the existing parking, if that was okay.
Okay, yeah.
And just that the building at the back to here.
Yes, so it is local authority owned. We have been in conversation with them about their plans. We will not be using it. It's not required as part of the hospital development, but I do know that the local authority are actively looking at plans to sort of improve that. I think there's a battery of garages to the rear there as well, which they're sort of hoping to enhance in some way, but it's not directly linked to the hospital at the moment. Your other point, which Jason very, very eloquently answered around the bin model, I do note that there are some contractors online today as well, which is always really helpful, that they will tell you that through their visualization, not just bin models, which is a scaled model of the building, but technology around sort of Google glasses allow you to visualize the building from a street level as well as internally as well, is all of the sort of technology that comes on board and is available to staff and other people to use to better orientate themselves and see how this building will look and feel in the future. So we build it before we build it. It's something known as building information modeling, and we use those tools to be able to demonstrate right through the construction process from the start to the end, linked to a very clear timeline as well. So we're providing just a little bit more than the sexy bin model that Jason might want, but you'll get lots of information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and I look forward to meeting up soon, so we can just follow that up.
Where will I leave my details for you?
Neil, is there a
Send them?
way
Yeah,
we
sorry,
can do it?
I'll drop the email in, but it should be the one that was on the invite. But I will drop the address in anyway.
Right, lovely. Thank you.
Varsha, you've gone up to number 1.
Thank you. 2 questions. One is, we have mental health facilities very adjacent to the hospital. Is there any plan to kind of bring, because I know our A&E sometimes is not the ideal place for people who are having some sort of a crisis. And the second question is, I'm a north of the Hillingdon borough resident. Would there be some consideration around park and ride? Because we've got a number of buses, but the north-south doesn't always work. So, you know, if you look at the transport plan, the north-south is not optimal. And there might be an option that if you have a park and ride, it might serve people from Heathrow villages or from the north to come into the centre of Hillingdon.
Thank you, Varsha. So the park and ride I'll let Tahir take in a second. Can I just comment? You're a far harder audience than the first roadshow we had, where this one we're all being hit for sort of 2-3 questions at a time. So the mental health capacity, I'll ask Vanessa to come in a second. The The key piece, though, when we're talking about how we're working collectively on the design of the new hospital, absolutely at the forefront in a number of our discussions in all the roadshows and consultation meetings we've had, is a real sense and a strong voice to ensure that we've joined up our services as people come in for emergency and urgent care around people's mental health needs. So we've got meetings coming up with a number of partners, including the police, actually, around how do we really design the front end to meet everybody's needs who do need acute care, but absolutely have sort of other needs that we really need to consider and make sure our building sort of meets their needs as we build it. So I'll just hand over to Vanessa as well.
Thank you. I think we recognise that a lot of our patients have, as Jason says, acute physical health needs as well as mental health needs. The mental health facility is run by one of our other trusts, obviously CNWL, but we are working with them to make sure we get the facilities right for those patients who need to be admitted to the hospital or who need to spend time in A&E. So we're working together. We're working to support them with physical health needs for their patients who are admitted to the mental health unit. They're working with us to support us with those patients we're admitting with mental health needs as well. So really looking at the facilities to make sure we really meet their needs in terms of having a calm environment, you know, somewhere that's a quiet room for them to go, where, you know, there's not lots of noise and light and things going on. So just thinking about what both their rooms look like and what the sort of shared facilities. So there's lots of outside space, including terraces as well. So I think that's really important. The whole hospital has quite a calm environment when you come into it. You know, the atrium will be big and open, so really lend itself to hopefully people feeling less stressed and pressurized as they come into the hospital as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. To hear Park and Ride.
Park and Ride, yes, absolutely. And I'm not going to pass it on here because I just want to point out we're not a transport. We're not in the business for transport, and that is done. And there's lots of rules and regulations around that. But notwithstanding that, we've had conversations with partners such as TfL, the local authority, about looking at things like Park and Ride or even dedicated buses that will bring and provide better connectivity from the areas of the borough, including some of the stations, so Uxbridge Station, etc. So we've had that conversation. It is absolutely on everyone's radar. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to inform that sort of, or certainly put in Park and Ride schemes specific to the hospital.
Thank you. Thank you both. So, Armel, you're up to number one. Are you going to tell me off for playing voicemail ping pong? But
hi. No, I was hoping to speak to you this afternoon, but I'm a bit late because I was speaking to Vienna and Frankfurt and Brussels before the.
You didn't have time for me.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I have got my mobile, and you did ring me this afternoon. But I would like, Jason, I would like to have a call from you, so we'll take offline.
Okay.
A few things that I wanted to. Few things that I wanted to mention. There was a webinar apparently for Harmondsworth, which the Residents Association was not available. The Residents Association chair, Jane Taylor, is actually here tonight, so I would like her to be kept informed, as well as myself, by email, please, of all the communications. I also, I think you're probably aware, because of all my work with the clinical commissioning group over the years, that a few years ago a survey was done regarding the largest number of attendants at A&E, and it was UB7 and UB3, which are the history villages, which comes to what the gentleman said earlier from Muesli. I am from the High Street practice, which is next to the family practice, and these are the nearest GPs to us. So people attend A&E because they don't have any GPs or they can't get appointment, and that was before COVID. So it is very important that regarding communication and engagement, that Hillingdon Hospital, and I'm counting on you to actually talk to me, have a very close relationship with the Heathrow villages. And the rest we can talk about it offline. But two things have actually come during the conversation. The urgent care center, will you have one, because it wasn't quite clear, will you have one in the new hospital? The Hawthorne unit, which was a mental unit, which was just mentioned, that I think was paid for, but with £10 million of land that you sold. Well, I mean, not you, but probably Shane or Hillingdon Hospital, which is now opposite the entrance of the hospital. Now, this unit cost £10 million. Is this unit going to move, or are you still keeping the unit there? Because it's a very, very good unit and pretty new. I didn't want to speak to you at the scrutiny committee because I had a birthday party for my husband's 100th birthday on Monday, although he died 6 years ago. So I wanted to be safe, and that's why I didn't want to speak to anyone. But I was concerned that when we started that conversation, it was 2025. Then last year it was 2026. At the scrutiny committee, it was 2027 and going. It seems to be like Crossrail and HS2. So I will be 80 by 2027. I'm not sure that I'll even be seeing the opening of it. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. Can I have some answers, please? Thank you.
So just there's a number of points there. If I just cover the headlines, Amel, if you were content, and then so there's probably two elements. I'm looking forward to my coming down, whether it be the village hall or wherever, but we need to organise that, and I've agreed to do that with the Residents Association. So thank you for the invite on that. We will speak over the next day or so, finally, and the key question in terms of the timelines. That's probably in part of just how we describe timelines. So what we'd like to assure you is that comparatively, the Hillingdon scheme is making excellent progress. So if you think the strategic outline case, if you look, and it's a testament to all our staff, they did such a fantastic job. The strategic outline case was approved at first presentation to our colleagues at the centre. That is you can't describe how other people would be jealous of that. So that is really an excellent achievement by all our staff. The outline business case, again, in terms of the huge amount of work that's required, but all our staff, with everything else that's been going on in their lives for the last 2 years, for us to say we should pretty much have that ready by spring and then looking to submit that in the summer is, again, I mean, testament to our staff in Hillingdon and all our partners who are supporting us as a fantastic achievement. Be under no illusions, Armel. My expectations is that we still keep our foot to the floor almost of, we want to keep motoring and get that full business case then on timeline to have that approved next year, to then look at sort of constructions of starting beginning of 2024. Those relative timelines after that, yes, that will then come down to discussions with builders, making sure we get approvals from our central colleagues and everything with that. But hopefully, Armel, comparatively, you've got a lot to be proud of in what all your staff at your local hospital are delivering at the moment.
Thank you for saying my hospital, because as I would like to remember everybody, I'm the founder member of the trust in 2006. So it is my hospital, and it was very much my husband. Right, okay, urgent care centre and Hawthorne unit, please.
So in terms of urgent and emergency care, so as Vanessa was describing that floor, there will be a number of units of what's most appropriate for people's care. Obviously, a key part with people walking into an acute hospital is an urgent and emergency care facility. And so that will be very much part of an integrated model for the new hospital.
Yes, but I was talking really more about, at the moment, you've got an urgent care center, which is actually, or an urgent treatment center, which has, I mean, whatever the word is, which actually is run by an outside company.
Yeah.
So would you actually have everything in-house, you know, in a new hospital?
So I'm going to be one of those awful people, Armel, who answers a question with a question, but there is a there is a question there as we're working with our commissioners and others of, so how services commissioned. Absolutely, that part of our service at the moment is commissioned from a private provider. You can walk into other hospitals in the country where that facility is provided by the trust, the people who run the hospital. And so there will be, over time, no doubt, discussions about how that works in the future, but the current model is the commissioners are commissioning a private provider to provide that service.
Thank you. And also on unit, which was a mental unit.
So that's the CNWL building.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from our perspective, in our plans, that piece is for CNWL to manage and develop. We are in active discussion with them, obviously, in developing all our clinical and estates plans with them, but that part is theirs.
So at the moment, are you planning to actually work around them, and for that you need to stay there then?
Yes, yeah.
Right, because I mean the Hawthorne unit is also a rehabilitation unit where if if you've got medically fit people and you want the bed, they are actually moved to the Hawthorne unit, and it's a wonderful unit. I mean,
Yeah.
Tommy was, and so
Yeah.
so at the moment it is being kept there.
Yeah, and when I'll take you through the detail when we meet up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Adrian, you've been waiting very patiently, but you're number one now.
Thank you very much. How will the hospital have its energy supplied? Is it going to go through solar, wind? Which method would it be, out of interest? Also, how will the Wi-Fi system for patients work and visitors? And will it be much better to what it was when I tried to connect my iPad to watch a program, which didn't happen when I was inside? Staff parking, how is that going to work? Is that going to be secure, easy for the staff to get in so they're not queuing up or waiting, like issues used to be for the staff for that? Also, things like, have the actual staff been taken into consideration on their opinions? For example, like an ambulance driver, how they park their ambulances, where they park them, how they can have sight of reversing parking. Is any bumps in the road for them? Because some ambulances don't cope very well with bumps or sleeping policemen. Because I got a friend, he's an ambulance driver, and he's always moaning about everything, that sort of thing in that. And how also the tech part of the hospital will work for like patients' information. How will that be linked up to like GPs and all the other departments as well in there? And one more question is, are there less departments going to be allocated at Hillingdon Hospital, or is or there be more departments brought into Hillingdon Hospital, so you don't have to go quite so far to different hospitals for different treatments?
Thank you, Adrian. So, Adrian, I'm going to give you the record for I think that's 6 questions in one go. So, apologies. Hopefully, I've written them down. But if I miss one, you're going to have to correct me if you're content. On the power, I'll let Tahir come up in a second. The staff parking, Tahir, if you didn't mind, to cover that one. The Wi-Fi and the tech, I'll cover, and if you didn't mind, the ambulance service, Tahir, if you cover. So I'll do the tech piece, the Wi-Fi, and the services piece. So Wi-Fi, just up front, apologies for your recent experience. I'm also lead on digital for the hospital, so I apologise if you had a poor service when you came in recently. and I'll look into that. If you didn't mind, just dropping me a line afterwards, just let me know what ward you were on so I can go and check it out. The piece on the tech and the digital going forward, it's really quite exciting actually. So if you look at the sort of emerging digital strategy that we're putting together at the moment, I think hopefully from a staff perspective and a patient perspective, it will be a real evolution about how we provide care. So as you probably know, when you've been in the hospital, our records are still paper, so we're working through on electronic patient records. If you think about how you work your way around the hospital, it's all quite a manual process as you try and follow the signs and everything. There is a absolute push to make the hospital as friendly as possible by us using digital. So whether it be an app on your phone, but there'll be a number of developments in stages, so it doesn't all happen when we get to the new hospital, to improve how we provide services digitally, both for staff and the local community. So that's in train. The piece around departments, what we are proposing in the new Hillingdon hospital will be the same range of services that we currently provide. I think Vanessa touched on it earlier, that they will be housed though in an environment that is significantly bigger than their current environment. So again, probably for a number of you in your recent experiences, the hospital is cramped. And the hospital is ill-designed in terms of people going around between different departments. All those changes in co-adjacencies, and just picking up on that earlier point about seeing a model or putting on a pair of goggles to see the plans, what will strike people is how much bigger the departments are and how much bigger the rooms are. So hopefully on that we'll work through.
So can I just throw one? How about for planning for the future in growth for, let's say, we worked out then we might need another 10 different departments. How would that be considered in for the hospital? What would be the measures or allowances would be allowed for that sort of thing?
So the marvellous thing, hopefully we can all be quite proud of with Hillingdon Hospital, is how the clinicians work is on quite a network basis. So in terms of our services, they absolutely have sort of core services that we provide in the hospital. But if you think about when people need more specialist care, I mean, Vanessa, who's the clinical lead for the redevelopment on the nursing side, is also sort of one of the directors at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. So it's, again, we're all working together about how we put those pathways through. To answer yourself, to almost contradict myself, though, in terms of answering you, as we're developing the sort of finalised plans with our local authority colleagues, one of the sort of key questions they ask us is, in terms of future proofing what you're proposing, because you don't know maybe what's happening in 30 or 40 years time, is there room on the site to build additional space or build something different in the future that complements the hospital? To hear absolutely in the latest iterations, there's space that we're highlighting to the planners that is there if needed in the future, if we were to look at whatever changes in terms of how clinical practice works over the following decades.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Should you mind just picking up and apologies to everybody, I know we're overrunning, but if Tahir just takes the last couple of points and then we'll close.
So I'll be very brief. You may have missed the question on staff parking. Yes, there will be dedicated staff parking, so I'll be very binary on that one. In terms of ambulances, we have worked with not just London Ambulance, but patient transport as well. We will have dedicated ambulance routes appropriate for the transition across the site. There is car parking, sort of ambulance charging as well. So we have electric ambulance charging, and we will have sufficient car parking space for ambulances, even whilst they're waiting, and not just discharging and receiving patients from the hospital. So we've given this great thought and consideration. In terms of the sustainability, again, I mentioned earlier, this is a fully sustainable net zero carbon hospital. That's our aspiration, to build it. Hospitals, by the very nature, are very complex buildings. So as new standards and guidance emerges, we are adapting our designs to suit that as well. To answer your question more directly, we will be using sustainable green energy, as we currently do in the hospital as well. However, we have looked at ground and air source heating, as well as photovoltaic. So the PV, or the solar panels, as they're commonly referred to as, are all part of our design on the new hospital, working towards a fully sustainable agenda. I think that probably covers the points. If I've missed something, I apologise.
Just on the staff parking as well, because one of the groups I don't work in hospital, but I talk to some of the people, is the cost and charges for the staff to park basically in a, and also they have to wait for a long time because they get onto a discount rate or something if they have to wait. How would that affect with the new hospital?
So I think we'll probably have a longer conversation offline, actually, if that helps. But we have put in systems where it mitigates the need for waiting. There will be adequate car parking provided. We've done some traffic modelling around that for staff and visitors as well. So we're very confident that you won't have the current issues. A full management system for the car park will also be accompanied, along with all the advancements in the agenda around sustainability and alternative modes of transport as well.
So the staff don't have to wait for allocated space at all. There'll be completely adequate amount of parking.
Yeah,
so when
so looking at early booking, for instance, you can use an app to make sure there's spaces before you even embark on your journey to the hospital as well. So it's not about sort of block booking. We can prevent that. So there's lots of technical ways of ensuring that we have got appropriate and adequate car parking for our staff, our visitors and our patients.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. You're
To
welcome.
here, there's just a couple of questions in the chat about housing. I don't know if you could just answer, which was around why are we adding residential properties, and will any of it be earmarked for NHS staff? Thank you.
Yes, so,
Thank you, Vanessa, for being more tech savvy than I was.
Thank you, Vanessa. And yes, so we're not housing developers, but we recognise that once the hospital relocates to its new location along the west side, we will have a residual site. We've been working as part of the wider master plan to not only ensure some really nice green open spaces, but also how we can work with a future development partner to look at how we can enhance that place. It's commonly referred to as placemaking, so a place where you can live and work. And of course, you know, this is not mass housing, it's actually quite reduced housing, but a good 50% of that is affordable housing as well. So we want to encourage people to not only come and work at Hillingdon, but also live and enjoy the amenities, and bringing on board some local shops, not to Westfield, but just an enhancement to more shops and amenities as well, just to improve that experience of living and working close to the new hospital.
Good. Excellent.
Thank you, Vanessa. See, I don't have to turn up anymore. Vanessa, she's there now. She knows how all these buttons work. I don't. Huge, I think, yeah, and again, she'll probably chair it better because we're 10 minutes over. So hopefully that's answered all your questions for tonight. Again, just a huge thank you for taking time out of your evening to attend. If there is anything further, any of you want to follow up, there's going to be further road shows, or please contact Neil. He's left the address now, hopefully for everybody, and we'll get in contact.
Sorry, I was about to say, so I will, there's a couple of questions, 2 or 3, maybe 4, in the chat. So there's one, I mean, I don't know if we've got time to answer the one about affordable housing, because Catherine's quite, to be fair, she did ask it about half an hour ago. But anyone else, we will email you. I've go back through the chat and we'll email you. I'm really sorry, we weren't expecting quite so many group questions from the previous one. So if, I don't know if anyone can do the affordable one quickly. I mean, there's the question about affordable housing. So basically, Catherine's asking, why are we, sorry, just go basically, are we sure with, by putting in housing into this part of the kind of phase 2 of the plan, you know, is that, are we kind of is we're not creating extra population pressure, I think is a question. So I'm just going back to it. Yeah, so the number of beds is not increasing in any substantial way. So the local population is growing. So how do we kind of how do we balance that? And also, given the high density of housing already existing, why is there further residential development included in the plans?
Tahir, do you just want to take the residential bit? I think
Yes,
that's the other bit. Yeah.
So the residential is a direct response to conversations we're having with our local authority. There is a need for ongoing housing, and there's various predictions, as you've probably mentioned in your chat box as well. We're not only working with the local authority, but also the Greater London Authority as well. So we're responding to hopefully addressing a future need. We will have a new hospital, and that in itself will probably invite lots of very good doctors and nurses and clinicians and staff that come and want to work and live in this area as well. So it'd be appropriate that we at least provide some degree of housing opportunity at an affordable price for them to sort of be co-located to the hospital. And let's not rely on cars all the time. So again, that will help our sustainability agenda as well.
Okay, thank you. So in summing up, with 12 minutes over, when's the next one? Oh.
So it's 17th of February, and we'll be much tighter on single questions. We'll see you then. You can book on. I'll drop a link to where you can. I'll drop a link into the chat as to where you can book on.
Thank you. So I'd just like to finish by saying a huge thank you to Vanessa, Tahir and Neil for this evening, and to all of you who have joined, because I think, as ever, this is something we learn from, and we'll very much be taking some of these things forward in how we're thinking about taking the redevelopment forward. So huge thank you, and I hope everybody has a great evening.